All right, CJ Gardner-Johnson, as Ezekiel says, he's been waiting on this one for a while. CJ Gardner-Johnson, who will forever be remembered as the guy who somehow the Texans traded Kenyon Green for CJ Gardner-Johnson, plus some pick swapping there and there. That in and of itself is a coup, because CJ Gardner-Johnson, incredibly productive football player, been with a few different teams in his career, and we'll get into all of that. But just by way of a reminder, this is CJ Gardner-Johnson. Just good, clean fun. This is a clean and legal football collision. 12 pass breakups this year. He is an extreme ball hawk. 6 interceptions this year. He's got 12 interceptions in his last 21 regular season games played. Very, very good in coverage. 13 interceptions, as I said, in the last 21 regular season games. Able to come up and make some hits that you don't quite expect from a guy of his stature, especially against bigger guys like Xavier Legette. But he is an aggressive player. Sometimes perhaps overly aggressive, and yet he's coming to a team in the Houston Texans that would rather err on the side of being overly aggressive, as long as you don't get hurt with big plays allowed and what have you. So I don't think that he's the panacea for some of the coverage errors that he made last year when guys were a little bit over aggressive. That's more of a unit problem, but it's going to be really cool to see him playing opposite of Kalen Bullock, another guy who's got a potential to create a lot of turnovers on a defense that had 22 interceptions last year, second in the league in interceptions, forces a lot of fumbles, likes to play a brand of violent football. He's had quite a few missed tackles too. I think a combination of him just really going for the big hit at times, and partly perhaps because of his size. But the guy's been a very productive football player. A little bit of a mystery in terms of the personality front of things, because he's got a really, really colorful personality. If you look at his stats over the course of his career, he spent 3 years in New Orleans, then went to Philadelphia, then to Detroit, then back to Philadelphia, and now traded to the Houston Texans. The big thing about CJ Gardner-Johnson is that the coverage ability is 100% exactly as advertised. He's very, very good. He tends to be better in man than he is at zone, and it's not like he's bad at either of them. It's just his calling card is man. In zone, and it's not even really an issue. I mean, you saw the Xavier Legette hit. That was in zone coverage. I think when he's a free safety, a true deep safety, that's where sometimes when you need a guy to be a backstop, sometimes is over aggressive, or is, I shouldn't say over. No such thing as over aggressive. His aggressive tendencies can get the better of him. I think on this team, by and large, your deep center fielder is going to be Kalen Bullock as you move forward, as long as he continues to develop. But Aaron Wilson had an interview with him that he put on his YouTube channel. I've got a link to Aaron Wilson's YouTube channel below. And as Doyle says, I enjoy having a few nut jobs on defense. Yes. First question, or at least the first question I'll play of Aaron's, was just how is he gelling with the guys so far since he's been here?
You're gelling with the fellas with the limited time. Obviously, you haven't been around them as much, but the Derek Stingley Jr.'s, the Kamari Lassiters.
Okay, and by the way, I'm going to need you guys to. I'm having a hard time interpreting exactly what CJ Gardner-Johnson means here, and I don't mean this in a negative way whatsoever. This guy is interesting as hell.
All these guys.
The week I was there, it was very, very closer than the places I've been before. Because this is a brand new organization. We're trying to be the first team to put a bull on the ring. That's something that, what is organization? What, really 10 years in here? Really not really crazy, 10 plus, 15, really not really too many years. So, I had to step back. I'm too much sometimes, and I think coming off a Super Bowl, it's a little too much for guys who, feel like they're at the top of their profession right now because of who they are. That's respectable. So me, I had to step back and I had to humble up, because now I'm at the bottom of the mountain with a team that never been to the top. So I can't come at the top of the mountain, bring the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. I can't do that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and by the way, according to Diana Rossini, officially Chubbs is here. So there we go. We don't have to say expected to sign anymore. I'll get to that in yet another video later today. I was a little bit confused about, okay, he had to humble himself up a little bit. He was here for a week. He loved it, but he had to take a step back. And I could interpret that a million different ways, because I don't think he means anything negative about it whatsoever. But I do wonder sometimes, man. Remember when Joe Mixon first got traded? it was a little bit of like when he first arrived in Houston, he was a little bit almost like still trying to figure things out and sort things out. And CJ Gardner-Johnson's had longer to adjust to all this. But I do like that in this interview, multiple times he mentioned about how it's all about championships for him and everything else like that. I think what Sean Pendergast and I settled in on this morning was he just didn't want to be at voluntary OTAs, which is his right as a player. Generally, people make a big deal out of a guy not being at voluntary OTAs if there's already something else swirling around him. By and large, it goes pretty quietly unless a guy is having a contract dispute or something like that. We'll find out. I mean, if you were to skip mandatory minicamp, I suppose that might be an issue, but I'm not concerned about it. I think it's in terms of him fitting in with this defense and fitting in with DeMeco specifically. The one thing DeMeco does really, really well is work with different personality types. And he tries to figure out each guy, how guys respond differently. And he coaches hard. Just because he's not a yeller and a screamer, don't make any bones about it. Aziz Elshire has talked multiple times about how those two just butt heads because DeMeco is just always, constantly gnawing at the most minute details. And that's what makes a tough coach. And sometimes it wears on you. Some of the toughest coaches I ever played for were the most soft-spoken dudes. It's just they demand perfection every single time. But what DeMeco does in a way that maybe, I don't know, perhaps some guys like Vic Fangio, who's an older school guy, and I played for Vic and loved him too, is allow guys to be themselves. And, we talked about this morning, the old adage of, dance like no one's watching. Football coaches want you to dance like no one's watching. Go out there and play free and have fun and everything. And yet at the same time, they're saying, dance like no one's watching, but I'm going to be watching and we're putting it on film and then I'm going to dissect every little thing you do. It's hard to strike that balance. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson might end up really enjoying being in this environment. And there aren't ever reports of him being disgruntled or him being a distraction or anything. He'll address that in a little bit. And I 100% agree with it. The other notable thing that's happened since CJ Gardner-Johnson has been traded was Vic Fangio had said something basically when asked about the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade that said, hey, that's Howie Roseman, the GM's decision, salary cap reasons, et cetera, et cetera. The Eagles have had to pay a lot of guys and they're going to have to pay guys like Jalen Carter in the future. This is how CJ Gardner-Johnson, who clapped back a little bit, not necessarily Vic Fangio, but the whole notion that this was for salary cap purposes. He said, I was a test dummy for them. So now they can be like, my scheme works, or did my skill set make it work? I guess the question is, did the scheme work, or did my skill set help it work? I had zero issues. People had issues with me. So yeah, let the salary cap be the quote unquote excuse. This is CJ Gardner-Johnson addressing that.
If it was about money, then everybody would have been gone. If it was about money, everybody would have been gone. How can I say this in the most respectful way? Saquon deserved it. Zach deserved it. But the reasons behind it, the fans don't deserve that reason.
Sure. So it's deeper than that.
It's deeper than that. The fans don't deserve it's about the money. Because if that was the case, my contract was safe.
Yeah, and the contract is not prohibitive whatsoever. I think two things can be true. It can be about the money, but it can be about the money, but you also have to decide, all right, who are we going to pay and who are we not going to pay? And, CJ in another one of his answers in Aaron's interview, which I recommend, it's linked below, would, basically talk about, being the highest paid guys, you got to check off every box and you got to play the role and everything. And I think he understands at this point that for whatever reason, some people just don't want to accept him and his personality, and he's just trying not to worry about it too much. There were also reports that the coaches in Philadelphia really wanted to keep him. And the way Fangio even framed it, I think, Fangio's not going to criticize the GM or air their laundry or anything. The way I read it was like, hey, if it was my say, I would have kept CJ Gardner-Johnson, but it's the GM's decision, so there's nothing I can do about it. I hope CJ Gardner-Johnson didn't take it as an insult from Vic Fangio, because I don't think that's what it was at all. I also reached out to a media member up there, and asked him about CJ Gardner-Johnson. I was like, so tell me honestly, is he kind of a whack job, or is he just a colorful personality? And this media member, this guy I really, really like a lot, he thinks a lot of it is just overblown, and that CJ Gardner-Johnson is the way he is, and a lot of it is in the media or what have you. I will point out that one thing, as far as on the field, because it's not headline grabbing stuff or, certainly not criminal stuff or anything that he's notable for. He does get penalized a lot, which tends to happen with a lot of Texans defenders, but he also has been, he received 6 fines totaling $101,298 this year for unsportsmanlike conduct. He was ejected from the Week 16 loss against the Commanders after multiple unsportsmanlike penalties, and they struggled after CJ Gardner-Johnson left the game. They struggled in that game. Like, his presence was definitely missed. I can see what he's saying about, hey, all right, is it the scheme, or is it at least partly based on what I was doing? I think the big question just becomes, is this going to be an issue for the Texans? I think for everything I outlined earlier, I doubt it. I think it could work out marvelously, but you got to play an entire season. Last question I'll play from Aaron Wilson's interview was basically about money being a motivator, and is it like, how is money as a motivator? Is it a sign of respect to you?
Right. Okay. When I'm by myself, it pissed me off because I look at all the things I've done, worked hard, and when I gotta go out in public, I just carry it. Like, me, truthfully, it's just like, it is what it is. To be the highest paid, you gotta follow the rules. You gotta put a role. You gotta do what you need to do on and off. And to me, I feel like to be the highest paid is more than that. I feel like you gotta show you're consistent. I think consistency with me has been key. I've been winning with no matter what group of guys you put me with, I'm a gel. Like, yeah, I'm crazy, but I think I'm a gel. And then being the highest paid, it don't really strike me no more. I think just doing something to help me feed my family. I can continue to play winning football with a great organization, and just being where my feet are and just being blessed, to be honest with you. It don't really matter anymore.
Yeah, the long and the short of it is, look, if CJ Gardner-Johnson plays really well this year, as he has for the last he was injured in 2023. The 2 seasons where he's played full seasons, he's been incredible, especially in terms of being a ball hawk. I know earlier this year, I don't know if you're pushing back against what I said, where Byron, I certainly did not mean to imply that he's not great in coverage. He is 100% great in coverage. I said he was great in coverage. It's that he's probably better in man than he is in zone, and only because there's lapses in zone, but he's known as one of the very best cover safeties in the NFL. So I don't mean to imply that somehow he's not great in coverage. And then one other okay, Particle Prime, you're gonna have to explain this to my cracker ass. Dude exudes black Air Force energy. I got to figure this out. All right. Are you talking about like black Air Force One energy? I get that, if that's what it is. They're going to have to, if he balls out this year and he doesn't get an extension or whatever it might be, then yes, there might be some issues. But this is an organization with the Texans that does not shy away from extending guys when they do well. I think it's one reason that Nick Chubb now officially has signed to the Texans, is because he looks at the Texans as a place that, man, all right, guys like Dalton Schultz, Mario Edwards, Malik Collins, various other veterans who have come here on 1-year deals have either signed extensions with the Texans, or like Sheldon Rankins a couple years ago signed a 1-year deal and then ended up getting a much better deal with the Bengals than he'd had the year before, than he'd been offered the year before. So that part of it, I'm really not worried about it. Any of the drama or anything else like that, I think it's mostly been reserved for, him going after Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift on social media and with a T-shirt at the Super Bowl parade. But I'm not worried about it other than that. Although the Swifties can be quite ferocious. I don't want to get in those social media circles. Largely the Swifties aren't on Twitter, which is the main go-to place for sports, more so than Instagram. So we'll figure it out. Okay, good. Look at that. Look at me. I understood the black Air Force Ones reference. Good for me. Yeah, if he's healthy, he's a difference maker. And how do you think he'll mesh with the rest of the secondary, particularly Bullock? I think that between the two of them, ultimately and ideally, because of especially because of Bullock's size or slender frame. I mean, he's a true deep center field safety. They can, obviously they're playing with split looks a lot of the time, but I think it's a good blend. And Gardner-Johnson has a very good football IQ. Like, he is a bright dude, and he's been able to adapt to different schemes every place he's been, partly because of that. So I think he's going to be a really good influence on the football education side with a lot of the young guys. Remember, he'll also have Jimmy Ward around, and I think some of the veteran savvy in that defensive backfield really gets up to notch with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like, you don't get 12 interceptions in 21 games without being really smart about where the ball's coming, recognizing route combinations and everything like that. That is, as a safety, the safety is a high IQ position, and it takes an education. You got to develop that. You got to have that innate IQ and develop it with film study. So I feel really good about him and Kalen Bullock. And I know a few of you say, like, why are you emphasizing the Ock and Bullock? Because that's the way he wants it pronounced. And unless I really emphasize the Ock, I'm going to be saying Bullock. And I don't want to disrespect that. I don't want to disrespect any of these guys with CJ Gardner-Johnson in the building. Did you see him hit Xavier Legette? Let me isolate that for you for a minute. Let's isolate this look. Look at this. Where is it? Here we go. This is CJ Gardner-Johnson against the Panthers this year. Just randomly having some good and clean fun. Rumor has it that for 12 hours afterwards, Xavier Legette spoke with perfect elocution. He was like Neil deGrasse Tyson after that for 12 hours. And then it disappeared. It went away. It's like when somebody gets kicked in the head and all of a sudden they can speak French. Let's see. Go with Kalen Ballhawk. Can't pronounce the name. Happy to see Chubb passing his physical. Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Keep saying I'm going to keep these things to 15 minutes, but I obviously keep failing. There's just so many good